Hello, book lovers. It's Denise LaRosa welcoming you to LaRosa Reads. I'm telling you guys, it took me 13 books to get to my first 5-star read of 2022. And my goodness, whew, it's a steamy one. Let's talk books. Y'all, I have finally found my first 5-star read of 2022, and it is The Secret Lives of Church Ladies, written by the one, the only, the uber-talented Deesha Philyaw, my fellow Pittsburgher. So Deesha and I go way back to my podcasting days. I don't know if you have been following LaRosa Reads for a while or if you're new to LaRosa Reads. Either way, I am here to tell you today that I had a podcast called Mom Talk with Denise LaRosa. Deesha Philyaw, the author of The Secret Lives of Church Ladies, was one of my very first guests on Mom Talk with Denise LaRosa. She and her ex actually did a wonderful, wonderful podcast episode. Deesha was the actual guest, but they had co-written a book about co-parenting and all of their words of wisdom, advice, and lived experiences with co-parenting to help folks really find a way to co-parent in an effective way and a loving way for the sake of their children. I am friends with Deesha on Facebook and other social media outlets, and whenever she was talking about how she's writing this book, I was so excited because Deesha is truly a talented human being who has so much to give to the world, and I knew that this book was going to be fire. So The Secret Lives of Church Ladies has received rave reviews. It's been much talked about, and I was excited to finally dive in. And quite frankly, I was a little bit embarrassed that it took me so long to get to this book. It's been on my TBR for quite some time, and I'm telling you what, everything happens for a reason. Timing is everything, and this was the perfect time for me to read this book. So what we have here with The Secret Lives of Church Ladies are a total of about 9 short stories. These short stories are just written so impeccably, so beautifully, so eloquently. Deesha is truly a gifted writer. And I have to first of all say, The Secret Lives of Church Ladies is not a church book, okay? Let's just get that straight right here, right now. So lovely churchgoers, holy rollers such as my mom, let me tell you something, mama. This book ain't for you. Because this book is all about church and sex around the church, in the church, somehow connected to the church. These are 2 topics that oftentimes are not spoken about together. So I grew up in the church. I grew up waking up on a Sunday morning way earlier than I would prefer, being at church first thing in the morning and staying there until the sun went down and having, breakfast, skipping lunch, and maybe having a church dinner in the basement. Praising the Lord. There was no program. There was nothing telling you that, we're going to start at this time and end at that time. It was just people being moved by the Spirit. And that Spirit was moving for about 8 hours. Growing up in the church, I had a maternal grandmother and I have a mother who were really, really devoted to God and a member of several churches or attendees of several churches, starting with Pentecostal churches, Baptist churches. My grandmother was a minister and started and established a non-denominational church called Faith Temple that never really got finished, which is a whole other story. But nonetheless, church was such a central part of my life. Now, with that being said, there is always church gossip to go with church. I am very fortunate that my mom and my grandmother stayed above the fray and they weren't involved in church gossip. They didn't speak about church gossip. But, us little ones were like spilling all the tea with each other as we heard other grown-ups talking. And oh my goodness, there were some serious scandals, y'all. And The Secret Lives of Church Ladies touches on so much of that. We have stories about 2 women who grew up as childhood friends, but ended up becoming lovers secretly on the down low because of all of the negative views of homosexuality in the Baptist church world. We have a woman who embraces her promiscuity and is sleeping with the church pastor on the down low and is making him this peach cobbler that lures him in. And honey, she gives him more than peach cobbler. Let's just say that. And her daughter is like watching all of this go down. No pun intended. And is taking it all in, and it gets involved in her own scandal and comes to terms with what she has witnessed her mother doing and what she's going to do next in her own life, what choices she's going to make. There's so much more. Each story is so beautifully written and just has you fully immersed, fully invested in the character's journey. Yet and still, sometimes with short stories, you feel like you want it to keep going. You feel like there's no ending to it, that the author didn't quite end it, and you feel a little dissatisfied. Each of these short stories are so satisfying. They have an ending, a very clear ending, yet you want more, but you feel satisfied with what Deesha gives you, and you can use your own imagination and lived experiences to carry that story on, to imagine what could happen next in these characters' lives. So I loved that. The stories each have very clear points of combining the church and the view of the Black church, the view of how there was such hypocrisy. Oftentimes there's hypocrisy in the Black church with sexuality, and it's taboo. You have such strict, I grew up in a very strict household and with very strict views about sexuality and the church, and not having sex before marriage and all of those things. Yet there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes with these adults who are praising the Lord, on Sunday morning, and doing a lot of other things in the evenings, during the week and weekends. And for a child growing up in that environment, it was really troubling for me, when I would hear these stories, and then I'm like, I'm not judging people, but I'm often wondering, like, what's going on here? The adults are saying one thing and promoting one thing on Sunday, and then they're doing these other things. Yet, is it wrong to embrace your sexuality? I'm not saying it's right to, cheat and have affairs, but we were born, God made us. I'm a firm, true believer in God. I identify as a Christian, and he made us to have these desires, these sexual desires. I mean, that's what keeps the world going round. That's what makes the human race a continued human race. You have to kind of have sex to have kids to keep the world going. And so what happens there? There's such a juxtaposition. And so this book unabashedly, just proudly, fiercely, boldly confronts church and sexuality in such a way that it didn't feel dirty reading it. It just felt like this is a part of the human lived experience, both religion for many and sexuality for many, for most. And it really was an opportunity for me to read about these lived experiences and see the other side of that. When people would gossip and talk about maybe some promiscuous people in the church, well, they were people with needs or with desires or with other lived experiences that helped them make the choices that they made, whether they were good choices or not. And so I actually had a lot of empathy and a better understanding of what motivates some people to make the choices they make, sexually speaking, and also as far as being in the church. Why do they choose to go to church? What is being a member of the church or having this religious belief do for them to fulfill their lives or give them a sense of purpose and hope? It all was a wonderful, unique way of looking at the Black church and sexuality. Some people are a little turned off by this book because it's so sexual and talking about the church. It wasn't quite what people expected. I think the cover is beautiful. And it says The Secret Lives. The word secret is there for a reason. So for me personally, I knew it was going to be a little scandalous, a little raunchy, a little naughty, because secrets are typically a secret for a reason. With that being said, I felt like Deesha tastefully addresses some very taboo, scandalous topics that are very real in the real church. And this cover is gorgeous. This Black woman is gorgeous. The way she's looking off, in pondering or reflecting, she could be any of these characters, and I absolutely love that. This book was a National Book Award finalist, and I have to say, on a personal level, Deesha, you did that. You did that thing, and you did it so well. I couldn't be more proud of you. I love you deeply. I highly recommend this book, and I cannot wait to see what else you have in store for us readers. This is truly a gift, and I just thank you for sharing your gift with the world. So that was my first 5-star read of 2022. I loved every word. I loved every minute. I did kind of feel like if my mom knew what I was reading, she would be like a little distraught. But I'm 40. I'm still scared of my mama, but I'm 40 years old. I'm a grown woman. Right? I can read what I want. If you've read The Secret Lives of Church Ladies, I would love to know what you think. Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Find me on Instagram at LaRosa Reads. And let's continue to do this reading journey together. You can check out some more of my videos, such as the one right over here. I would love for you to stick around, subscribe, hit that notification bell so we can just keep this community going. And until next time, happy reading. Bye.